Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yoga Love podcast. My name is Noelle Whittington. And in the first podcast, I talked about my mission of creating a legacy of love through the strategies of philosophy and yoga and music and dance and lifestyle and any experience that connects us with the deeper levels of our being. I believe that our bodies and our minds can be a tool for connection with our whole selves and with one another, and also to the divine, what we perceive as God or source or the universe or any word that you feel comfortable with. So I'd like to break down love in my studies through three major categories: love of the self, the whole self. We'll talk about that in a moment. Relationship love with another being, and then divine love. And I myself am a student of Bhakti Yoga. So as a Bhakta, I am devoted to love. I am a lover. That is my top value in the whole world. And I hope to create experiences where I can hold space for everyone to reconnect with their own true nature, which I believe is love. So I would use, instead of the word God, I would just say love. And through this self-study, as life gives us, whether or not we like it, I've found my faith. And that for me is just love. And it's been a journey, as we all have. But I feel just so connected to just the fact that our society really needs opportunities to feel loved and not judged, and to create freedom to not necessarily just move past the conditioning where we tell ourselves that we're not enough or that we don't deserve to be loved or to be celebrated, because we're normal and we're human, and there's nothing wrong with feeling limitations or feeling self-conscious, because that's just that's the truth of who we are. But to notice those fears and to have an experience where we find the courage to lean into that fear and to say, what is that? What is this feeling that's holding me back? What is my mind creating that's limiting me from connecting with the infinite nature of my being? And how can I move past that? So it's really my mission as a yoga instructor and a musician and just a human in the world to help other people to kind of let go a little bit and to lean into what that means for themselves. So self and relationship and divine love. It's a big topic, so we'll probably have quite a few top podcasts about love. And when I say the self, I mean body, mind, and spirit. And from a yoga philosophy standpoint, if we ask the Bhagavad Gita what that means, we could look at chapter 7, verse or text number 4. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kammano buddhir evacha ahankara ityam me bina prakritir astada. And I'm learning Sanskrit, so please have patience with me. If you're a Sanskrit scholar, please contact me. I would love to study with you. I think Sanskrit is the most beautiful language because it's about vibration and it's about what we're trying to cultivate, not necessarily the word itself. And I've learned that there are so many different Sanskrit words for one English word. There are over 100 Sanskrit words for love. So verse number 4 is earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these comprise my separated material energies. And my is the capital M because we're talking about Krishna here. And I'm reading from the text, the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, from His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And thank you to Victoria Dodge for gifting me this beautiful book. In the Bhagavad Gita, the soul, the super soul, or God, or Atman or Brahman is referred to as Krishna. And Krishna is the all-attractive one, and Krishna is the God of love. So I believe that while I absolutely appreciate these divine names and these forms, I don't believe that there's just one way to connect with love and to connect with God. And I would love to learn more about that. And so that's what I'm trying to do here with my studies in these podcasts. So I will join you in that study. So the body and the mind and our intelligence and our false ego are comprised of the 5 elements, and our intelligence, meaning our intuition, and false ego just means our attachment to the world and to basically attachment to impermanent energy that manifests into matter. So that's called prakriti in yogic philosophy. So the self, another way you could think about it is the 5 koshas or sheaths. You have Annamaya kosha, which is our food sheath. You have Manomaya kosha, which is the sheath of the mind, so our functioning intellectual mind, the one that tells us, you have to get trash bags when you go to the grocery store. And then we have Pranamaya kosha, which is our energy body. And Pranamaya kosha is where we recognize the energy that is all around us and that we have the ability to control it and to move it through the energy channels or the nadis. And that energy connects us to a deeper level of being, a deeper layer of being, called then Vijnanamaya kosha, which is our intuition, the buddhi mind, the wisdom sheath. And finally, Annamaya kosha, which is our bliss body. It's pure consciousness, or Purusha, or the super soul, or Atman, or God. There's a lot of different words that you could use for that. So our whole self is not just the physical body, and yoga philosophy would describe that as the body and the mind and the energy and our emotions. So self-love is not just, giving yourself a bubble bath and, getting a massage or taking a nap, although those things are great for our physical body. But I like to think about it as kind of a pie. If we're practicing self-love, what are the different aspects of our whole health, our whole wellness, so of our physical body and our mind, but then also our spirit. What nurtures our spirit? Do we have relationships that are fulfilling? Do we have purpose in our lives? What's our dharma, and are we living that out through our life practices? Being able to look at the things that we're scared of and really dig deeper from those feelings of being scared. Emotions are temporary states of being, and feelings are messages from our higher self, from our soul. So emotions are messages from our intuition that we are being guided if we listen to. So self-care could be asking ourselves, when someone gives you a compliment, why do you talk them out of it? One thing that I was noticing lately as a woman is when I'm out in public and I'm in, let's say, a restaurant bathroom, one of the ways that women can connect to one another if they don't know each other is through self-deprecation. I love giving people a compliment when I see them because I mean it, and I want them to know that they are beautiful and that they're strong and that they're worthy, and maybe they have cool shoes on that day. So if I were to comment on a woman's shirt in the bathroom, oftentimes she'll say, oh man, yeah, I just got this on the sale rack. It was $2 at TJ Maxx and it's got holes in it. And another woman would say, yeah, well, at least you look good in that shirt. I feel like I have to tuck mine in because my belly's hanging out, or something like that. It's kind of a silly example, but you know what I mean. where we feel that we have to make ourselves less than to connect with one another. It's almost like a submissive thing. Like if you would see a dog, roll over on its back so you could rub her belly. Why do we do that? Why do we feel the need to lessen ourselves? So maybe practicing getting a compliment and just saying thank you, learning to receive that. Or working with meditation so that we have the mental capacity to really truly listen to another person in our lives. So self-love, I think, isn't just the love of our self only. I think it extends out into relationship love, which is the next category, because I feel like that's a bridge to the divine. Other beings in the world bring us so much joy, and they also bring us so much pain. And it's not coming from that other person. They're not making us feel this way, but these experiences are just teachers. I believe that we come into contact with people that are messengers from the divine, from God giving us these lessons that we can choose to listen to or not. So when we're in relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or just a parent-child or a friend or a family member or a pet or something like that, these relationships can be so beautiful and pleasurable, but also so exquisitely painful because this other person is mirroring us. And the messages that we get from another person are just messages from our soul. So that's really important when we think about communication in a relationship. It has been hard for me to communicate clearly by giving someone else. I feel very vulnerable sometimes when I communicate with another person. And so the practice of nonviolent communication has been really, really helpful for me personally in connecting with other people in relationships, because it just empowers us to speak to our own direct experience, to notice the emotions and the feelings involved when that other person did or said a particular thing, so that then we could get down to the root of, okay, well, if it's an unfulfilling feeling that I'm noticing, what is it that I actually need? How can I more deeply connect to another person, which will help me to connect more deeply to myself and to be more honest about what my needs are in the world and how to connect with another person so that they can meet my needs too, knowing that we're all doing the best that we can. And there's thousands of strategies to meet our own needs, and that suffering is created when we get attached to one strategy. So when we can really be honest about what we're feeling by making clear requests from another person, considering that they also have the same feelings and needs that we do, that has been a game changer for me. And I really love being able to communicate with people now. And that, being in service to another person and wanting to be in love and to be loved, has helped me learn more about myself. And this mirror of another person invites you to step up and to be vulnerable and let them get to know you. And that can be a really challenging thing. But I think that our relationships with other people, especially our romantic relationships, teach us those scary bits that we might not otherwise come into contact with. And one of my favorite Bhakti Yoga sutras from the Narada Bhakti Sutra is Sutra number 51. And it is the essential nature of love cannot be expressed in words. And I'll try the Sanskrit here. Anirvichaniyam prema swarupam. The essential nature of love cannot be expressed in words. So love can't be described. How do we know that we love another person? How do you know? Do you feel a warm feeling in your heart? Do you feel connected to that other person's needs and wants and values? Do we need affection? Do we need acts of service? Do we need to be shown love in a particular way? How is it that we know that we love? It's not something that we can really even describe. And that's why I love learning about yogic philosophy, because we don't know it with our mind. It's inexpressible and it's unattainable by our limited but beautiful human mind. We only know that we love someone because we feel it. And I think that is the same thing as faith. And so it's been really helpful for me to learn about these things, to have a vocabulary for something that's really inexpressible in the first place. And one of my teachers, Bill Mahony, has a text called Exquisite Love, and it's reflections on the Narada Bhakti Sutra. And if you're not familiar, the Yoga Sutras are just books of aphorisms on a particular school of thought. So there's Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there's Bhakti Yoga Sutras, there's quite a few different sutras describing each school of thought. So the Narada Bhakti Sutra is just one of them. And so I'd like to read a passage from Bill's book, Exquisite Love, on the nature of divine love. And he's quoting the Bhagavata Purana here. He says that Indian devotional thought holds that the formless power of the divine presence is expressed through various saguna forms for the devotee's sake, no matter what stage of spiritual development the devotee may have attained. That graceful love is like the wind, which assumes the fragrance of whatever it blows across. So the Bhagavata Purana quote is that love is like the wind, which assumes the fragrance of whatever it blows across. And backing up, saguna means with qualities. So when we talk about the love of another being, when we talk about relationships with other beings, if we go up to a higher level from yogic philosophy, we learn that the universe, through the sound of Om, and this is just one creation theory, was split into pure consciousness, or Purusha, and Prakriti, energy and all of its manifestations. And within Prakriti, that is the changeable and the dynamicness. Purusha, or Brahman or Atman or God, is formless and absolute and unchanging. So within the dynamic nature of Prakriti, there are the qualities of nature called the gunas, and the sensory and work organs, the tanmatras and the indriyas. And it goes deeper, there's more. But essentially, if we hear the word saguna, we know that that means with qualities. And that means love of another being. Because another being, when we talk about loving another person or a creature, that we love the soul, but it's really easy to get attached to, or to fall in love with another being, a person or a creature that's right in front of you, someone that you see reflecting your own divine qualities, and it's easy to feel love that way. When we have a reference point for love, I think it's much easier to understand what that means and to be okay with it. The way that you love your children, that is, of course, an absolute. Yes, of course, I love my child, but how do I know that I love my child? I don't know it with my mind. I know it with my heart and my feelings and my emotions, which are messages from my soul, which is really just me experiencing the absolute depths of the nature of love within myself, my higher self, through the vehicle of this experience that I'm having in this life on this plane. So we're really just loving one another's souls out there. And I'd like to read from William Mahony's book. And he's talking here about the highest devotion is love for God beyond characteristics. So, I mean how our relationships help us to come into contact with and become comfortable with divine love. Okay. The unconditioned and unconditional source of all our experiences of love, God is not defined and limited by the web of the gunas. In this sense, God is nirguna in nature, without guna. As such, God is not an object among objects or a thing among things. God is the ultimate divine field without which there can be no existence whatsoever, the boundless potential by which anything becomes actual. So he's saying here that divine love is inexpressible and it's without form, and it's just ultimate. It just is. You know when you get your heart broken. And we get our heart broken because we have certain expectations of ourselves or for another person. And when we get attached to these constantly changing energies and forms staying the same, and either from our unwillingness to reach out to another person and to connect day to day, to stay on the same page and to understand one another and come together, often it can be very challenging, or we're unwilling to meet one another where we are and to grow and change together. I love you forever if it can be very challenging, and then if that relationship ends, it can be very, very, very sad, heartbreaking. Our heart breaks so that it can reform itself, and within that emptiness there's infinite potential. So I really feel like, probably like most of you can relate to this, when my heart was very broken, that's when I truly found my relationship with God, with my relationship to divine love. And I think we all are searching for something, and we get these gifts every single moment and every single day, and we have the ability to offer that love in every single moment of every single day if we want to. I'd like to read a quote from the Bhagavad Gita here. So Krishna is speaking to his disciple Arjuna, and in the Bhagavad Gita, this is my understanding, Krishna represents the absolute, and Arjuna represents the dynamic energy and manifestations, Prakriti. So Krishna would be Purusha, or God, and Arjuna would be Prakriti. And you could think about that also as higher self and lower self. So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, and he says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, whatever spiritual practices you perform, do that as an offering to me. So Krishna is essentially saying that any action that we take or any thought that we have can be an act of devotion. So we can take our basic rituals every single day and we can make them holy, we can make them divine. Habits performed every day can be holy if we want to, and that would be a ritual. So essentially, love, I think, is just about being honest with ourselves from a place of non-judgment and love, and I think that it takes a long time to get there, and I think you have to kind of hit, I don't want to say rock bottom, but often for some of us it comes from a place of having nowhere else to turn. If we have no one to look to but ourselves, then we can have a deeper relationship with ourselves. So I think the key to that is taking time in silence and in self-reflection, checking in with ourselves every day to connect to source and to get messages from our higher self, so that then we have the strength and energy to be vulnerable and to articulate our feelings and needs to the people that are in our lives, and to make very clear requests as compassionately as we can, understanding that everyone is going through something. we're all having this life experience together, and we can all celebrate one another's beauty and strength and divinity. And our habits that we have every day, like being sarcastic and making fun of other people and making fun of ourselves, and saying that we can't do things, or that we're not good at something, or that we don't deserve this or that, and all of this, the lack mentality that we have, that comes from a place of fear, which is really just conditioning patterns that are manifested from either experiences that we've had in this life, any trauma that we've had, or maybe things that we've taken on from our parents. We've seen our parents and our grandparents go through things, and so we've used that information and that vicarious trauma and allowed it to become part of ourselves. So as much as we can, asking, what is this? What part of this feeling and this experience is mine? What's real and true? And doing practices that remind us that in this present moment we're safe can be very helpful to come back to balance. And so I'd love to share with you one of my favorite practices that helps shift the energy for me and helps me to come back into balance, and that is chanting. And I love chanting mantra, Sanskrit mantra specifically, because Sanskrit is a vibrational language, or called the language of the gods. And there's specific mouth positions in Sanskrit where the way that you hold your mouth when you pronounce, or the way that the tongue strikes the palate in different places, communicates with our energy centers and communicates on a higher level beyond our conscious mind. And it's helpful when we don't know a word in our own spoken language. We don't associate with a mental thought, meaning like an experience or a memory that we've had. So we just get to experience the feeling and the vibration. And Sanskrit is really just that. It's a vibrational language. So we can connect to the sound and the rhythm of the word itself, and try to connect to the pronunciation as best we can. And we're all eternal students, including me. And when we do that, we have the opportunity to just eventually, through repetition, the mind creates a trance-like state. And so we just become that quality that we're trying to cultivate. And so we're seeking out and we're calling to that. We're calling to the mother or the father or to God or whatever you want. And then we just become that, and maybe we realize that we already were that in the first place. So one of my favorite mantras is Aham Prema, I am love. And so I'd like to play a little tune for you. And this is my tune, and if you want to find more of my mantras, you can go on my website, narayanishakti.com, and check out my SoundCloud account. And I'll post that in the information of this episode. So if you'd like to chant with me, Aham, I am. Prema, love. I am love. My harmonium is pretty creaky and squeaky, so bear with me here. And when we chant, it's helpful to find a comfortable seat so that you can be as settled as possible, maybe with the hips higher than the knees so that the blood can flow through the legs with less of a chance of the legs falling asleep. And sitting up tall so that we can receive prana or energy in all directions into the central axis of energy, the Sushumna Nadi. So let's sing for love, for ourselves, for our relationships, and for connection with our spirit, our soul, God, the divine, universe, the beloved, and for everyone to be able to have that connection, to feel safe in love, to feel held in grace or faith. Because if love is inexpressible, we just have to arrive there. Let's take an Om to the deep breath in. Shanti, Shanti. May we be carried deeper into love, peace of body, mind, and spirit to you. Namaste.